You know, I've talked in several videos about how when I was younger, when I was a teenager, I was so enamored with the ACLU because this was an organization that stood by principle for so long. The ACLU was the organization that defended actual Nazis, real Nazis. They defended the Ku Klux Klan from exercising their right for free speech, even though the speech that actual Nazis and the actual KKK have is deplorable. It is literally deplorable, and everyone knows it, but the only way you protect free speech is to defend the most deplorable speech. Because if you don't defend that speech, then everyone else is open to attack. But if that speech is legal, if that speech is protected under our First Amendment, some of the worst speech, some of the worst ideas that we can possibly imagine, well, guess what, guys? That keeps us off the slippery slope. That means that all of our speech is protected. All of our ideas, our ability to express ourselves is protected. And that is what's important. Not that a bunch of random KKK people get to go on a march one day. It's the fact that they do get to go on a march that protects the rest of us. And you have to hope that in a free society where everyone is able to express their ideas, the very best ideas are going to rise to the top, and the very worst ideas, the ideas that are expressed by the KKK, the ideas that are expressed by actual Nazis, they're going to go right to the bottom, and they're going to be completely slapped down, because in the marketplace of ideas, that's how it works. And that was true. That was true up until the Trump presidency, when the ACLU lost their flipping minds, and now they're lying. It's not even just that they have chosen to no longer defend the First Amendment in this country. It is that they are flat lying. They are lying. And thank goodness I have a platform where I can talk about how they're lying, at least until YouTube decides to ban me, which who knows, they've already cordoned off my channel, so they may try to do that at any moment. I know a whole bunch of channels just got banned in the last day or so for daring to talk about the Hunter Biden thing, and I've talked about the Hunter Biden thing, so who knows, I could absolutely be next. I don't take anything for granted, but in the meantime, while I still have a channel, I'm going to talk about how the ACLU are a bunch of lying liars. And I want to start with this post that I saw yesterday, I think, on Twitter, about the ACLU talking about Donald Trump's ban on critical race theory in the federal government and completely lying about what it is. They wrote, the Trump administration is banning talk about race and gender. The administration is barring federal agencies and contractors from providing employees with critical training on race and gender discrimination. Now, you notice what they did there. They said critical training. No. Now, those of you who have watched my channel before, you know this. I know I'm beating the dead horse. The Trump administration did not ban talk about race and gender. The Trump administration banned a very specific philosophy that is overtly racist. In fact, if you read the executive order, and I have gone through the entire executive order in other videos on this channel, if you want to refer to those, if you read the executive order, what it says is that it bans training that teaches that one race of people is inherently superior. It literally bans the teaching of racism. It bans teaching that one gender is superior to another. That is what it bans. Go read the executive order if you don't believe me. There is a section in it called Section 2, Definitions, in which it defines exactly what is banned, and which places like the ACLU and other outlets who have covered this, like the New York Flipping Times, have purposefully ignored. They are lying to you. So let's read about what the ACLU says. In the latest attempt to silence conversations about race and gender equity deemed anti-American, President Trump issued an executive order last week banning federal entities and contractors from providing employees with training on divisive concepts and harmful ideologies related to race and gender. You know why it's deemed anti-American? Because one of the things that it banned was teaching that the United States is a fundamentally racist country. So I'll just ask you, do you think the United States is a fundamentally racist country at its core? Do you think the entire United States was built on racism? Well, if the answer is no, then you should be completely okay with this training being banned, because that is literally, not even figuratively, that is literally what this training teaches, is that we are all racist, the United States is a racist country, that all white people are racist based purely on being born white. That is what this training teaches. What Trump deems harmful ideologies are actually concepts diversity trainings use to educate individuals on the systemic barriers of discrimination and people of color and other marginalized groups still face in this country today across our institutions, from our workplaces and schools to our criminal legal system. What the ACLU isn't telling you there is that there is no data to support critical race theory in actually making improvements in any experiences of any lives that may be, you might look at them from the outside and say they're oppressed. Either they were born in like lower income communities, or they were born to like poorer circumstances than many of us. And listen, man, that's a shame. I am very behind creating a world which has maximum opportunity for as many people as possible. But the reality is this: every single one of us is born into different circumstances. Every single one of us is going to have different life experiences, and some of those life experiences are going to be better than others. And that is just the way it is. But that just because maybe you're born into a wealthy family and maybe you never have to worry about money in your life, that doesn't necessarily mean you live a better life. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're happier. One of the things that was so striking to me about Peru was these were some of the poorest people that I like, literally living in huts, what we would consider a hut that they've pieced together over years, something that even the poorest people in America would never ever live in. Because I wasn't in like the cities in Peru, I was out in the country, right? And so like they were living in what people in America would never live in, even in the poorest communities. But they had such high quality of life. Their kids were happy. They had big smiles on their faces. They were loving life and living it to their best ability, and it didn't matter. And this is what we have forgotten about, that it is not about how much money you make. It is not about how much power you have, but that is all these people care about. There are so many ways that you can find happiness. There are so many ways that you can find fulfillment, and that is a gift that is available to everyone. Let's keep going. The recent Black Lives Matter and Me Too movements have shown that people across the country fully acknowledge the realities of systemic racism and sexism are still alive and well, and the need to dismantle these systems, the need to dismantle the systems, pursue change is more important than ever. No, what these movements have acknowledged is that there is a fringe of people that is about maybe 8 to 12% of people on the far left that will scream and shout and cry and be very, very angry. And listen, I want to say this, and I want to be very clear. I do believe there are legitimate grievances within both these movements. Listen, man, I work in organizations. I have been involved in sexual harassment investigations. What I know, and this is not news that many of you want to hear, what I know is that most of the time when sexual harassment is reported in the workplace and they bring in an outside investigator, most of the time, something like 90% of the time, the person that was reported actually ends up admitting it. They end up admitting it, and maybe they didn't think it was as bad as it was, or maybe they didn't think it was really a problem, or maybe they just didn't care and thought they could get away with it. But that is what happens 90% of the time when you bring in an outside investigator that actually knows how to investigate these things productively. Now, I do think that these things should always be investigated. There should always be a professional investigator involved. They know how to get through this information. But what happens is they ultimately end up admitting it. And I've seen this happen over and over and over again. And every sexual harassment investigator that I've ever talked to has said the same thing. There are legitimate grievances, but that doesn't mean that we need to completely fundamentally change the way we do training in this country. And that is exactly what these people are arguing. I was a corporate trainer for years. I've been doing corporate training since like 2012. I worked in all different companies all over the country, all different types of training. I do mostly communication training, how to bring employees together and how to be able to have conversations and stuff like that. But, this crap didn't creep into corporate training up until very, very, very recently. And now it's exploded and it's taken over the whole industry, and it has prevented people from actually doing training that is that is based on data that has been proven to work, that has been proven to get results, it has prevented those types of trainings from happening because companies are out there investing in these nonsense trainings that are just teaching white people that they're racist. That's all they do, ACLU, is they teach white people that they are racist and to hate themselves. And that is not productive for anyone. I'm sorry, I went on a little bit of rant. I'm a little bit sick. You guys, I'm sure you can hear the difference in my voice. I don't have COVID. Calm down. I just have a head cold. I actually feel fine, other than my voice sounds ridiculous. But I'm getting uppity because I'm tired of it and I want it to go away. It sucks to wear a mask when you have a head cold. Let me tell you what. The recent okay, we already read that. But rather than engage with these conversations taking place across the country, the Trump administration seeks to silence individuals and impose alternative versions of American history, one that erases the legacy of discrimination, lived experiences of Black and brown people, women and girls, and the LGBTQ plus individuals. No. What the Trump administration is trying to do is rein things in back from Crazy Town. That is what they're trying to do. They are not trying to present an alternative version of American history. In fact, it is these trainings precisely that are presenting an alternative version of American history that is not real, that is not even factually accurate. In fact, who is the woman? The woman that wrote the 1619 Project, Hannah Nicole Jones, I think is what her name is. Like she's basically had to walk back the entire premise of that piece now, and there's a letter from like a whole bunch of scholars saying you really should take back the Pulitzer Prize, because she's had to admit that her entire series was based on nonsense that is not historically accurate. Our country needs to acknowledge its history of systemic racism and sexism and reckon with present-day impacts of racial and gender discrimination. So why ACLU? If this has been going on throughout our entire history, the ACLU is a storied organization. It's been around a long, long time. Why did you just discover this if it was so important? Why is it something that's plopped on your radar that happened to happen when Donald Trump was president? Did you, like, if you had your ear to the ground like you claim to, you guys are out on street corners raising money all the time. I assume you talk to people. Like, why did this pop up as a surprise? It's, systemic racism is something we should be fighting rather than actually protecting civil liberties, which is what we're designed to do as an organization. Slavery and its legacy of oppression are parts of American history that Black people are still facing today. And isn't it always interesting that they're only interested in Black people? That's it. Latinos, Asians, Black people. That's all that matters in their little game of calculus of systemic racism. Women, especially women of color, because women like me don't count anymore, just so you guys know. Like, women like me don't count. It doesn't matter that I'm married to an immigrant. That doesn't count either, because we're both white, so, you know. Women, especially women of color, continue to be segregated in lower status and lower wage fields in the workplace and are paid less than men across the board. Halting, and by the way, the gender pay gap has been disproven multiple times. It is not a real thing. The only gender pay gap that really exists could be easily closed if women would actually learn to negotiate. Women, don't take the first salary that's offered to you. Negotiate. Ask for something that's above and beyond, because the people offering you the salary know you're probably going to negotiate. The worst thing they can do is say no. And if they do, well, you have a choice to make. Do you want to accept the original salary, or do you want to go work somewhere else? But never accept the salary at first. Always try to negotiate. Women don't do this, and this is why they generally get paid less. Also, there are other reasons having to do with the types of jobs they have, the number of hours they work, things like that. But if those things are accounted for, the amount of money that women can make is there's no limit to it. The only reason, again, you just have to negotiate. You have to ask for what you want. Don't wait for someone to give it to you. Halting all diversity training. Lie. It did not halt all diversity training. It halted a very specific subset of diversity training that is based on nonsense. Halting all diversity training could back progress in addressing these systemic issues, among others, including in the workplace. I'm sorry, again, I've been a corporate trainer for like the last 8 years. you ain't gonna fix systemic racism by doing training in the workplace. The best you can hope for is to fix some interpersonal challenges in the workplace. That's all you can really hope for. And if you do that, you've done a good deed, man. But you're not going to fix systemic racism through one training in the workplace. It is simply unrealistic. Talking about racism and sexism is not harmful to employees. Well, it is, actually, and I get emails from people all the time saying, I read White Fragility and it made me depressed, and you were the first person to tell me that it was all bunk. So it does actually cause problems for individuals, but even worse than that, when organizations are shelling out tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, or in some cases millions of dollars for this training, and this training directly contributes to the actual teams being less effective, because that is exactly what it does. Teams are less productive, they have more interpersonal problems, they have less psychological safety. All of those things are going to lead to people that are just simply not as productive in the workplace as they could be. Let's see. I know I'm talking a lot on this one. I hate this. I hate that this is what the ACLU has become. I used to revere the ACLU. I've given so much money to the ACLU. Man. Many employers host trainings on these issues precisely because they contribute to a workplace that is more equitable and inclusive. No, they don't. And the ACLU has no data to say that they do. Instead, President Trump's authoritarian-leaning executive order presents the real danger and takes us steps backwards in achieving full equity in this country. It also violates First Amendment right to free speech. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. What it says is that you ain't getting federal money if you do this training in the workplace. Now, if organizations don't want that sweet, sweet, sweet federal contract, then guess what? They can do whatever training they like, and they don't have to follow that executive order. But what they do need to do, if they want those federal contracts, or they want to engage with the government, or they want government-funded grants, then they need to stop doing this one specific subset of training. And no, it doesn't violate your First Amendment. Dude, when Twitter can censor whatever they want, and that doesn't violate our First Amendment, do you really think that organizational training in private organizations violates the First Amendment? No, it absolutely does not. Because and the evidence I have of this, ACLU, is that you posted this statement on your website. You can say whatever you want. That's not the way the First Amendment works, and you know that. Of all organizations, you are the one that should know that. President Trump's executive order unconstitutionally requires every individual or company with a federal contract to certify that they won't provide trainings on so-called divisive concepts, even on the contractor's own time and dime. That's right. Yes, it does. In other words, the order effectively gags federal contractors from talking with their own employees about issues of the most profound national importance, such as the impact of systemic racism and sexism in our society. This is a blatant attempt to leverage the federal government's vast financial resources to suppress speech about race and gender that the Trump administration disfavors. Dude, every single time I've seen this training implemented in organizations, it leads to worse organizational results and significantly more problems. Organizations need their employees to do the actual functional nature of their job. That's what they need them to do. They don't need them to be engaging in struggle sessions all day, every day. It simply makes no sense. It destroys psychological safety on the team. It doesn't help achieve the organizational goals. So why are you asking organizations to spend, again, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands? Google is spending millions of dollars on this training, and frankly, Google is going to be worse off for it, because Google is also one of the places that did the study that confirmed that psychological safety was a key driver of effective teams in organization. That literally came out from Google, and now they're spending millions of dollars to completely counteract the effects of that study. Congratulations, Google. That's called bad decision making. Trump's executive order borrows from the long discredited playbook. Oh my God, ACLU. Dude, what's happened to you? Seriously, ACLU, we need to have a chat. What, who hurt you? You were doing just fine. And now you're spewing lies and nonsense? My God. In the McCarthy era, many states passed laws requiring public employees to certify that they were not members of the Communist Party or other treasonous, seditious, or subversive groups. employees can go get whatever training they want. There is amazing anti-racist training that will charge white ladies like $2,500 to go to dinner to have black women tell them that they are racist. I'm not making that up. They can go do that on their own time. What this order does is say, you ain't spending federal money on this training. You're not doing it. But employees can go do whatever they want. If they want to go waste their money to be told that they are a racist, well, God love them. Go to town, man. In response to numerous legal challenges, including several cases brought by the ACLU, the Supreme Court firmly established that the government cannot require people to disavow participation in constitutionally protected speech or association in order to keep their jobs. No one's talking about firing employees if they go to dinner to be told that they're a racist. That is literally not happening. They're making that up. That is not happening. People can do absolutely whatever they want on their own time. No executive order that Trump has issued says that they can't. Whatever power the government may have over its employees and contractors, it does not have the power to dictate their private expression on public matters of concern, including discussions about race and gender discrimination. You can talk about whatever you want as an individual. What you can't do is pay for someone to come in and do training that is specifically based on critical race theory, which is a subset of diversity training. Like, a lot of people talk about how, diversity and inclusion came out of critical race theory. I mean, no, it really didn't. There was diversity training before this, and there are diversity trainings that happen around different communication styles and that sort of things, and looking at people as whole people is actually quite effective. There are great diversity trainers out there, but not when it's based on critical race theory. There are other trainings that my husband was just doing this the other day. I walked past. Okay, fun fact. I know this video is running long, but I have to tell this story. It's relevant. My husband still works out of the house, and I kind of walked by his computer the other day, and I saw he was watching a webinar and kind of looking miserable, and I was like, is my husband getting diversity training? And it turns out that he was. He came up to my office later. He was like, it finally happened to us. We finally had to do the training. And then he said, you know what, Carlin? It really wasn't that bad. It wasn't about people being racist. It wasn't about any of those things. It was just about looking at other people's perspectives and thinking about it, and no one was told that they were a bad person. And I was like, cool, man. I have no issue with that type of training. That's a very big company that did that training. I'm not going to say who they are because I don't want to get my husband in trouble, but you know what? I salute you guys. You did it right. You didn't do the bad training. And that goes to show that organizations are fully capable of doing diversity training that is not based on critical race theory, and that is fully within bounds. Let's finish up. The Supreme Court has also rejected attempts to categorically ban or burden private expression by government employees and contractors. Dude, it's not a burden to not talk about critical race theory. It is a blessing not to talk about critical race theory. Such categorical bans present the gravest threats to the First Amendment freedoms because they directly suppress an extraordinarily large amount of protected speech, chill even more speech before it happens, and distort discussions on matters of public concern. Of course, President Trump's executive order is expressly designed to suppress and distort public discussion around issues that Trump considers divisive, such as race and gender justice. The Trump administration does not trust people to think for themselves on issues, so it decided to think for them. Fortunately, the Constitution does not give President Trump that authority. All right, here's where I'm going to end this video. Let's watch what the ACLU does about Twitter and Facebook censoring speech, protected speech under the First Amendment from the New York Post. Let's see if the ACLU has any values left at all. Because if they don't say anything about Twitter and Facebook blatantly censoring speech from one of the largest media outlets in the country, then I think we know exactly where the ACLU stands. I mean, hell, we already know where the ACLU stands, but it'll just put a nice little cherry on top. All right, guys, that's all I've got for this one. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel, helping me reach my 100,000 subscriber goal before Election Day. I greatly appreciate it, and I'll see you soon.